Hello, people around the world. How are you all? Hope you all are fine by mercy of Almighty. I, Dr. Sanjay, welcome you once again and with a new guest. His name is Michael Ballard. He is the CEO and founder of the Resiliency for Life. He is the most optimistic person I have ever met. Welcome, sir, to our show. How are you, sir?
I'm well and blessed to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let's move to Michael to know more about him. Sir, please introduce to our viewers and over to you, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm Michael Ballard, Resiliency for Life. And I got interested in resiliency very young because resiliency is about beliefs, values, and behavior resulting because of beliefs and values. So somewhere between 5 and 7, I hit this from a bicycle accident, riding a bike vigorously like a 5 or 7-year-old can, and a little girl ran out in front of me. I managed to avoid hitting her, good steering and braking and all that, but I didn't manage to stop. Down the ditch, hit the wet, stopped, flew over the handlebars, ended up in the hospital with a concussion. And when I came to, the world's biggest headache that you can ever imagine. So that in itself isn't what made me think of resiliency. But within a half a day, I had a roommate who also had had a concussion, also had hit himself at the front of the head. I wanted the lights off, whispering please, and move slowly. Everything hurt. He, on the other hand, wanted to know where all 4 grandparents were. One set were in Florida on holidays, and one set were out of country on holidays in another place. And in the 1960s, you just didn't grab an airplane every hour to come back to Toronto. It just didn't happen. Sometimes there was like 2 flights a week. And where's Daddy? Daddy's in Europe on a business conference for his work. So this young man was happy his mother was here, but he was very loud about grandparents, father, understandably so. So at my young age, I was amazed that 2 people, similar issue, almost identical issue, 2 very different responses. I'm like, wow, doesn't your head hurt? Mm-hmm. Doesn't screaming make it worse? Mm-hmm. But his emotional want to have his parents there and grandparents was stronger than the headache. So again, not better than me or different, just different than me. So that got me really interested. So fast forward to 17, a medical professional with good intentions said, well, this chronic illness you have, there's nothing you can do. Well, in my family, you're not allowed to live in the land of nothing you can do. You can visit, but you can't stay there. So I went to a local university that had just been built, lucky me, less than 90 minutes to go to a medical library, free access for the public. You couldn't sign books out because I wasn't a student, but that's okay. Librarian treated me like a student, for not bad for a kid in grade 11 to be treated like a master's student. Here's the issue. Here's what there's been some research coming. You have to look over here. Anyways, ancient cultures have known this for 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 years from many countries. North Americans, I am one, so I can say it. Sometimes we forget there's a whole world out there that isn't just North American centric. So the researcher said, look what I discovered. Well, no, look what he found for himself and researched it, scientifically measured it. Powerful, important. But instead he made it sound like nobody in the world had ever known about this. Well, we know that people from Korea, Japan, China, India, Pakistan, you name it, this has been going around for 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 years. Athletes know it. And that was about fight, flight, and fright response. Oh, people with chronic illnesses have pain, have more fight, fright, and flight response, which increases their stress levels, becomes a vicious circle of more pain, more pain. Well, if you learn to understand your fright, flight, and fight response, you have a chance to lower your pain and your frequency and intensity. Oh, that was the first thing I learned. And then, in 1969, they discovered the relaxation response. No, they didn't discover it. They measured it. They scientifically validated it. I took Shaolin Kung Fu in the 70s, where my instructor and his instructor had been to China and Japan and learned both closed fist martial arts training from Japan, open hand training, martial arts, Shaolin Kung Fu from China. And that was a lot about staying and managing, being relaxed, and being in flow, which came out from the University of Chicago in the 1989. So if we know that fright, fight, and flight response keeps us safe, but also sometimes for the wrong reasons it kicks in. So if I watch a good murder mystery show, you can hear the music and the lighting and everything, and they're playing with my brain, and boom, and I jump in my couch and I go, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. Although at my age, I now start to know that it's coming, but I sometimes jump anyways. So fight, flight, and fright response. So what we did in our business is we've renamed it because I want to work with 3-year-olds and 103-year-olds, and I want them to know it instantly that the fright, fight, and flight response is both a safety response, very important, but it's also an entertainment response. So when people wish to entertain us, they use all the things, the lighting, the sound, the tempo of the sound, and other things to get in here and get that response to kick in. So at 17, I learned these things, and it was like, wow, this is what I took in martial arts. Oh, and it doesn't go against anything I've learned about my faith and talking to my friends in school of other faiths. Didn't go against anything they knew about their faith. It was like, this is really good. When science and faith and sports all align, this is powerful. So I started to practice it. I went 3 years without any chronic health issues. So in my yearly checkup, under the microscope, wow, Michael, you've still got this bowel disease at the cellular level and no symptoms. No, I think maybe a couple of days this year I felt a little flushed, but that could have been that I was talking to a pretty girl. It had nothing to do with my bowel disease, because the bowel disease would sometimes make my face feel a little flushed. And anyways, so that got me very interested. I fast forward, I'm good now, but I had a cancer battle for 7 years with 2 bouts of cancer, and one of my treatments through no fault of the doctors failed. So I had 3 brushes with death. There we go. And along the way, the doctors, the nurses, the care team are like, how come you're still happy? Well, one of the things about resiliency is you have to ask yourself one question. Do you have the issue, or does the issue have you? At 3 in the morning when you're feeling lonely and sad and there's nobody else awake, it's okay to have the issue have you. But to quote a famous singer from the States, and I like to tease that one day I'm going to meet her and tell her she took my best lines, shake it off. You got to shake it off. Because I had cancer. Cancer seldom had me. So for 23 hours a day, I fought to that I had the cancer. The cancer didn't have me. But when I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd recognize that, oh, I've been dreaming, I've been whatever, cancer has me. Just for 30 minutes to an hour. Not allowed after that. It's against the rules. And so that is part of being resiliency. What does your belief system say about the challenges that you're having? It's okay to feel overwhelmed that cancer has you or the problem owns you. But then for 23 hours a day, with the right skills, the right support, the right attitude, you have the issue. The issue doesn't own you. So I actually had to tell my therapist in the hospital, don't come back. He kept saying, you're too happy. You've got cancer. It's been 3 locations. It's spread. I said, no, I know that. I got a will made the day I got the diagnosis. I have a support team for my spouse with her permission built up. I called 190 odd friends and acquaintances from the last 20 years of my life. I was 26 at the time. So I said, I've told them to send me notes and letters. No internet back then, not even faxes. It was 81, 83-ish. So send me something positive about your life. Don't want pity, don't want sympathy or empathy. Just tell me, for example, you've got a new patient or a new client or a new position, or you wrote a new paper and you widely accepted. Something positive. Or the garden's in bloom. Send me a picture. So I got a deluge in my first 7 weeks in the hospital from my surgery. I got 400 and some odd notes and letters and cards, and I had hospital staff going, should we know you? Are you on TV in another province or another state? Nope. Just a guy scared out of his mind who's asked for help. But be careful what you ask for and how you ask it. Didn't ask for money. Didn't ask for sympathy. Didn't ask for empathy. I wanted to frame my connections with gentle positivity. So the guy in shipping and receiving in the company I work for, tell me, how's business? So I got a note after a couple weeks. Michael, you'd be proud of us today. We set a record. We shipped X more units than ever before. That's 11% more than the facility was even designed for. This is being efficient. And I'm like, yes! Because as much as I'm fighting for my life, I have cancer. The cancer doesn't have me. So I still have the rest of my parts of my life I'm interested in. And that's my optimism, my gratitude, and my realism. The realism was getting the will made the day of the diagnosis. The realism was talking to my real estate agent we bought the house from less than a year earlier, and the moving company that had moved us less than a year earlier. Say, here's what's going on. Here's all the important numbers. My wife has a sheet on the wall of my office. Here's who to call if my demise happens. Now I'm going to fight. So I'm a realistic optimist. So that's me in a nutshell. So it's helped me with sales. I was sick once in my 10-year corporate career. For 4 months, I was not at work. I still came in 7th out of 79 sales professionals and consultants because I connect with my clients. I engage with them rationally, emotionally, socially, and we were a team. So if you own the store, I'd say to you, if I was your retail consultant, if we hit the sales target, staff get a raise, right? Right? No? Okay, good. So I'd say to the staff, with the doctor's permission, here's what I want to tell you. Here's what we need. We need a 12% increase because the rent for the location's gone up 14%. Cost of goods gone up 9%. Transportation's up 20%. And I would give it to them different than you gave it to them. And I had stores where we set sales records, even though at some points the economy was booming to the point where we were 40% less staff than they'd ever had. But people will do extraordinary things if you gently, positively explain it to them, and it goes to the heart. If it goes to the heart and it goes here and they understand it, it's amazing how people will behave. So that's what I've been doing now since I started Resiliency for Life in 1987. I've got to work with multinationals. I've got to work with grandmas and grandpas who were taking care of a child because mom or dad had passed or had a serious health issue. And regardless of if somebody's 3 or 4 years old, I got to work with a nursing home with seniors. All the seniors in the room were 88 to 103. What could I possibly teach them about life and resilience? But the nursing vice president of education and health said, Michael, help them understand that as their body fails, this still here is here. This is here. They still have this. She said, you made nurses at the educational conference all over the age of 50 laugh about it getting old. I told them that at 20 some odd years old, after major surgeries, things dripped. And after 5 sets of surgeries, things dripped and leaked for a long time. So I had a short-term lesson on what's it like to be over 75. So she said, go in and make them laugh about getting old. And I did, because it's serious. You can't change it. So if you can learn to laugh at what bothers you. And so that's another thing that sometimes gets in the way with me and the odd expert is they don't understand that I'm taking what I'm going through seriously, but I'm taking myself lightly. So when I go through medical testing on occasion, every few years because of my bowel disease and my cancer, I don't go for colonoscopies or endoscopies. My term is not medical and it's not accurate. I go for T cubed, T to the third, tush tissue tests. It's silly, it's irreverent, but it gives me a sense of I'm in charge, I'm in control. I'm still here. And so I also don't go for the medication when I'm going through these things because they now have the fiber optic tools are so tiny, they're inconvenient, they cause gastric distress and discomfort. But in the 80s, the tubes were a few centimeters in diameter and 18 centimeters and longer, and that had to fit in you to do tush tissue. Oh my Lord, no wonder people didn't go. So perspective, gratitude, and so as I'm being tested, I get to look inside my own body because there's this high definition screen. So I have gratitude that we have that sort of medical equipment. That's a real amazing thing. What an amazing thing. But that I get to see something that most people never get to see. That's the inside of my body, my digestive tract, looking very pink and healthy these days, I have to say. So I would tease them. I should smile. Would that make a difference down there? No. So Resiliency is a serious topic. It always helps increase the quality of our experiences, and it often changes the outcomes, whether it's medical and health, whether it's our education, whether it's our relationships, whether business. Oh, I can't speak enough about how it helps business, slows down or eliminates staff turnover. It's an important topic and very close to my heart.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for sharing your life story.
Thank you.
No doubt you are true most optimist person I have ever met. No doubt. You fight Bell's palsy, you fight cancer. Still, you are the true inspiration for many youngers like me. So I feel honored. I feel privileged that you are on my show. I have learned lot of things. The most important things I learned from your this intro, this life story is the positivity. Thank you for being here.
You're
Sir, my
welcome.
next question is that please describe, tell us to our viewers about resiliency. What is resiliency? How it affect our life with positivity, with our works, and so on. Over to you, sir.
Well, let's use education as an example. For those of us with children or grandchildren, or maybe we've got somebody working on their grade 11 or grade 12 or university degree. Resiliency is not a cure or a fix, but resiliency is a beliefs and a value system. So I taught adult education at three community colleges. So that's past grade 12, but not the same as university. It's a hands-on, very applied. You typically would hire a college graduate to get things started and a university graduate sometimes to run it, not always. Anyways, I taught career search, and in the one course I taught, everybody's been out of work for more than a year, up to 10 years. So to use the two extreme examples, the one young lady was like, Michael, I moved back here with my husband and young daughter because I got tired of the rat race in the big city. 2 to 3 hours to commute, plus an 8.5 hour workday. It's an existence. It's not a life. I can't find any work. That's the one. The other one was a gentleman I can remember like yesterday. And he started the first day of the class. I had appointments with everybody for 20 minutes at a time. I wanted to really know my students. And he came in, this tall, thin gentleman. He puts his hand out and he's, hi, Michael. And he's shaking my hand in slow motion. It's very good to be here today. And I'm thinking, I wonder if he's had a brain injury. I wonder if he's on medication, because he's not talking. He's very, very slow speaking. Not a character flaw, I'm wondering. Turns out he'd been off work for 10 years because he'd had a severe mental health issue, and it took them 8 years plus to figure out the right medication for him. And medications had changed over that 10-year period. They finally got medication that he felt good in, and the doctors felt he was safe. And so he was coming back to school because he didn't want to be on long-term disability. I need to work. If I was 64, I might retire. So there's this great big tall guy who'd had 8 years of trying to find the right medication to get his brain to work right after a major breakdown, and his courage to come back. He didn't have to. He told his mental health workers that I need to get to work and pay taxes. Oh my gosh, what a citizen. Anyways, the first young lady, what do you want to do? I want to work in my hometown. Where's that? So she tells me. It's a small town, 400 people. Anybody that lives there, almost nobody works there. It's what we might call a bedroom community. There's one employer that has 50 people in this small town. And it's a gravel quarry. So it's a place where they dig into the ground and with dynamite blow up the rocks, and they take away the gravel and use it for construction. See, I said, so have you applied? There's nobody there. They don't have any space for me. What do you want to do? Well, I've got my degree in accounting. I've got my designation in accounting. I said, well, I think you should take a longer term look. You grew up in that town, right? Who's in that company that you know? take your resume, take them one at a time out for lunch. Tell them you want to know when somebody's about to retire, you want to apply for the job. In anything, switchboard, bookkeeping, accounting, truck maintenance, whatever. If that's the small town you want to work in, so you can bicycle to work 9 months of the year and walk to work the rest of the time, because that's what you want for your daughter, because there was a public school there. Kids got bussed in. And so it took 2 years. She got a job there. So she worked temporary positions while her husband finally landed a good job. And she's like, wow. So resiliency is partly about being creative. Like I said, nothing immoral, nothing illegal. You didn't buy anybody, a flat screen TV to get the job. You just interviewed your friend who was the inventory clerk for all the parts, and you interviewed the CEO's, the board of directors assistant who worked part-time because it was part of a big chain. I said, and eventually it came true. They all knew your work ethic. They knew you left and got an honors degree in finance, and then you got a financial designation. Like, you're a good candidate. So she got hired in the beginning to be their bookkeeper, and the chief and only accountant. When he retired a couple more years later, she got that position. And I said, think about it. You now really know the company even more than he did, because you got to do the job of his direct report. Oh, I said, so you're wanting to work there, and as long as it's a safe, healthy work environment, you're like the mega employee. So I haven't talked to her for 10 years plus, but she'd been there for like 18 years the last time I talked. So resiliency and job search, education, it's attitude, it's strategy, it's belief systems. And to go back to the gentleman with the mental health issue, he was excited to learn how to job search again. Oh my goodness. I thought, if he shows up for an interview and he sounds this flat, because no volume change, no pacing, just, they're going to wonder, this guy's a risk. Is he going to die? Is he going to go off at work again? So we had private conversations. Eventually his wife was included with his permission, and we worked on him modulating his voice, because he'd had a good track record. A 10-year gap in a resume for employees, people are going to wonder. On the other hand, though, when you off on long-term disability and you have the chance to stay on it for the rest of your life, this is a man that wanted off. I'm willing to fight to come back. I got to fight what's happened in me to get back out there. So we set him up with co-mentors, other students in the class, and they all helped him with one piece of each class he was in. He had 6 or 7 topics a semester for this 5-semester course he was in. And I got to see him for the first 5 days, where we talked about how to be a resilient student. And then over the course of the 5 semesters, he had another 7 days about how to job search as a resilient job searcher. And I was real excited, because when he got a job, he was like, and I make $10,000 a year more than I made 10 years ago. Wow. So to be a resilient student, how do you define yourself? I find it tough to learn. You've set yourself up for failure with just that one sentence, as opposed to learning is unique. Why is it some teachers I learn easily from and some teachers I don't learn so easily from? You're not assessing blame. You're just open to learning how to learn better with some, and you're happy that with some it's easy. So we helped him look at preferred learning styles. So, do you learn better when you make notes, or do you learn better when you hear it and you hear it back again? So should you be recording this and then you can play it back in the car on the way home? Because he had a 90-minute commute, 3 hours of commuting, because he was serious. He was going back to school. He was going to graduate. He's going to do better. So his attitude. And so we then set up a team for him, where we had somebody that did pop quiz questions for him. Silly questions about each topic. All of them should be memorable, because they're not that tough. And that gave him a sense of, hey, I'm learning. That helps with confidence. That helps with, we wanted him to speed up his thinking just a little bit, because I'm not a neurologist, but I know that with practice, it's amazing what can happen. So then we had him join a bear pit session group on the topic. and somebody would put up the 30 plus questions, and they had 3 hours once a week to review 30 questions. They'd done the pop quiz on Friday from the week before, on Monday, and then on the Friday they did the bear pit in the morning on their half day off, and they reviewed the week to date 30 questions they put together the night before. That stuff's tough, makes my head hurt, but it's exciting because I'm remembering a lot of it. So he wanted to learn so bad, you had to help. So as students, what type of student are you? Is it the teacher's responsibility to put a plug in an ear, a funnel in the other, and it's just supposed to stick? No. As learners, we're responsible as well. My biology teacher that I took grade 13 biology from, the only issue I had is he expected perfect spelling. And my response was, well, you gave me a 49, I failed, okay. But I knew the topic. You gave me 87 and 83 and 89 on the hand-ins. You're confusing spelling with knowledge of the topic. But I lost, and now the Board of Educations in the state or province I live in have changed. You can't fail a student for bad spelling because I showed mastery of the topic. I just have a spelling issue, something I'm neither proud of nor embarrassed about. My brain just doesn't do spelling. So in grade 13, endoplasmic reticulum and other words were my nemesis. So being a resilient student, being a resilient parent, being a resilient professional, a citizen takes time, takes effort. One of my local regional heroes in the city of Toronto is a lady called Pat. I won't use her last name because she might not want me to. It's out there. They even named a street after her in the city because if she was your neighbor doctor, she would say, I saw those young people over visiting on your front lawn the other day. How can I help? Because some of them look in distress. And the next thing you know, she'd be cooking them a home-cooked meal once a week. She's just, I might be over 65, my dear, but we got to still keep helping each other. So she's a resilient community builder. At one point in her modest 2-bedroom apartment where she lived with her daughter and granddaughter to save money, so they had more money to help the community, she would have 60 youth in her living room, crammed in with all the windows open, talking about the big issues in the community. And she'd be saying, we have to have patience. These things, that's a 5 to 25 year issue. Well, yeah, you're right. That should be fixed immediately. And she'd make notes. And I got copied on some of those emails. And she'd say to the mayor's office, this has been going on for 20 years. Enough's enough. I got young men here trying to be responsible, respectful citizens. We need to fix it because they're not going to stay well controlled forever. So she was polite, but she was firm. So the phrase truth to power comes to mind. So that sort of behavior is also, depending on the country, the state, the city you live in, that approach doesn't work everywhere. In some places, it might put you in danger. Because one of my friends from a country south of me, south of Central America, said, Michael, we did that in my home country. You might not be ever found. You might just disappear if you spoke to an authority like that. So in Canada, that's a safe approach. So resiliency is about what's the issue, what's the outcome I want, what's the process, what's the skills, what are the resources I need to deal with this. So one of the researchers came up with the language of resiliency they noticed in children and the 4 phrases that are important to be resilient. And you have to own them. You have to mean them. You just can't say them. You got to live them. So I am Michael Ballard. I have 2 chronic illnesses. I've had a 7-year battle with cancer and I have no large intestine left. I have to manage my chronic illnesses. Manage my health by what food I eat. The food I eat to manage the no large bowel goes against what I should be eating because I'm diabetic. So as my medical team said, Michael, you will juggle for the rest of your life. And currently I'm told I'm juggling, I'd be in the top 10% for health for diabetics. I'd like these to keep working to my last days. I have a goal to live at least to be 93. If this is still functioning pretty well, I'd like to live then to 101 or 103. It sounds silly to have these goals, but it's serious. One of the things about being resilient is you have goals. So I am blessed. I have people that love me and I love them. I have a community that supports me and I support them. It's a two-way street in this often. Not always the same people that you love and respect will love and respect you back for whatever reasons. A relative who passed in the last 3 years had serious mental health issues for most of her life. So I loved her, she loved me, but in her last weeks, I got to visit her one more time. And she said, "You were the only one that ever told me if I didn't get help, you would take me to court." I said, "Well, I loved you enough to have you hate me because you were not staying safe. And I thought the only way to keep you safe, because you haven't listened to regular conversations, the only way to get your complete attention is tell me, if you do that again, I'll call the police. And I will be the toughest person you ever met because I'm going to tell them to throw the book at you." They had schizophrenia, depression, and other issues, and their life was really tough. But that doesn't mean you can take it out on me or my relatives, the rest of us. So part of being resilient is boundaries. Having logical, respectful boundaries that you're willing to bend on occasion. So when that person with the mental health issues phoned and screamed at me at 3 a.m. for no reason, the first time I was like, oh, they're having a bad day, a bad month, a bad year. But when you realize, when you phone around, they've been doing it for 20 years and they're not taking the proper meds, then it's time to push back. If I don't take meds properly, I go blind, I could have a stroke, I could die. There's consequences. And people tell me all the time, oh, but people with mental health issues, it's different for them. Don't care. They're an adult. They're past 30 years old. I run out of patience, especially when they've had the diagnosis in their 20s. Time to get to be 30, 35. No, stay on your meds. Anyways, so resiliency in health, it's really important. So I am, I have, I can. I can directly impact my diagnosis of diabetes by the food I eat, how I eat it, when I eat it, and how often I eat it. So I just made cookies from my mother's recipe from the 1950s. I haven't made cookies for over 10 years because as a diabetic for 5, I knew that in my family history, everybody between 40 and 60 became diabetic on my mother's side. I'm told, the experts tell me that if your mother's got it and your grandmother's got it and your aunties and great aunties had it, it comes through the female, that particular health issue comes through the female side of the family. So I made a decision at 40 years old that less to no sugar. No more honey in my tea. It was just a little bit, but I love the flavor. No, don't need it. So for 25 years now, I bought my significant other lavender honey for Christmas. I've had a little bit in my tea twice just to test it. That's it. I won't have any more. So I made these cookies. It's a big treat, but I got to exercise twice as much, even with insulin, to wear down the sugar. But it's a choice. I was missing, my mom passed 2 years come January or July, and I've been missing her. So I thought the best way to celebrate my mother and have good memories, I'm going to bake her cookie recipes. She's got a gingerbread chewy cookie that's so thin, and it's the sugar. It's really squeezable, chewy, all natural, no lard, with lots of ginger. It burns. And as a little boy coming home from school once every couple of months, cookie, 2 glass of milk. I was the luckiest kid because most kids on the block never had a mother make these types of cookies. The same with the raisin oatmeal. And then the ginger, they're almost a ginger snap, but they're too thick. They're ginger dunking cookies. My family used to have it. Part of resiliency is how do you celebrate life and differences? So part of my relatives had a joke with the family that you never dunk cookie in coffee, tea, or milk because it's uncivilized. And my uncle with his finger out would say, well, I dunk my cookies with my finger out just like the queen might when nobody's looking. It was a nonsense thing. But the dunkers, the non-dunkers, it was silliness. And mom came up with these cookies and there was laughter. So part of being resilient is gratitude and how do you celebrate life? Where does your joy come from? So I am, I have, I can. I can still celebrate life despite several surgeries. I've got a 16-inch scar and they've gone in there 5 times. And I used to tease the doctor after the second time, should we put a zipper in instead? Silliness, but it's how I coped. And they put in 77 medical clips. So I was like, oh, cool. You know, and then I do. So I am, I have, I can, I do. Being resilient is doing, not just thinking, not just planning, but the actual implementation. Even if it's only 5% of what you want to achieve, implementation. So that's the things to remember about resiliency, is the language that comes from our belief systems is the I am, I have, I can, and I do. So I do manage my diabetes. Making cookies this year for the first time in 15 to 20 years is a big deal. But for 2 days I was in the kitchen. I made a quadruple recipe. I've been giving them out to friends and neighbors with a mask here in honor of my mother, who was a good baker and many other things. This is how I remember her today, because I felt lonely. All these locked in hours from COVID, I'm not getting any social time of any amount. With all respect to you, this is great. I'd rather be 6 feet apart in a room. So being resilient is choices, implementation, being safe, taking social, emotional, intellectual risks, but still staying physically safe. I exercise. And one of the things about being resilient, doctor, and this is not a disrespect to you, but for some experts, when you're resilient, they mean well, but they're tired. So they say silly things. So I have a toe joint with issues, makes walking very painful. Well, my family doctor said, yes, I can feel that, Michael. And I'm like, yeah, you're touching it. I can feel it too. I teased him that my toe joint retired 30 years before I wanted to. Because it's disconnected and pops and pinches the nerve. And when it pinches the nerve, I just about want to go through the ceiling. So he sent me to a foot expert. And the foot expert said, oh, there's nothing you can do. You're old. And I'm like, what? So I came home. I didn't say anything out loud, but I said to myself, I'm glad I'm civilized, because I wanted to kick the doctor in the nose when he was down there at my foot telling me there's nothing I could do. So I went online and I found a pain clinic. And the pain clinic has a gentleman who's got an honors degree in movement therapy. And it's a Western trained medical doctor who's also a Western trained chiropractic doctor. And they said, why are you here? I said, I want to manage the pain in this toe joint so I can stay mobile, so I can stay fit. I'm diabetic. I'd like to live another 35 years, being real, extra optimistic, and realistically 20 more years for sure. If my grandfather can make it to 87, why not me too? Anyways, so they went through the healthy foot, examined every joint. Well, there's no sign of any diabetes damage on this foot, because that can be one of the issues of unmanaged or bad diabetes, is your joints have inflammation and other things happen. Oh, he gets to that one. This one doesn't show any signs of inflammation or anything else, but the joint is definitely out. How do you think it happened? Couple things. My rollerblades, which I would rollerblade for a couple of hours at a time, that foot's, the left one's a little bigger. So when I got one that fit on the left side, the right side was sloppy because my feet are disproportionately out of sync compared to average. So I bought the one that fit the right side good, and the left side just would push the foot a little too much. Or gardening. My parents' garden was world-class to look at, but the soil was partially still clay, and on occasion I'd help Dad, and I'd jump on the shovel, and every time he'd say, don't jump on the shovel, you'd hurt your feet. I remember jumping once and feeling that joint go click. So when that doctor said nothing you can do but your age, you're toast, and I was like, in my head. I came home, I found a pain clinic. It cost me money, but they took a measurement of my feet and created orthotics, and it pushes the joint in place. And I can now exercise and power walk 5 miles. I can jog a mile. As long as I got the orthotics in, pushes the joint in place. So yes, it costs money, it costs time and 3 appointments, but I have my mobility back for now 4+ years and still managing my health. So resiliency is you trust and respect people, but sometimes people make mistakes. So we'll just say that man made a mistake with me by foolishly saying it's your age. Age had nothing to do with it. It showed me that he was tired, lazy, something, but not a professional at that instant. So you have to own your health, even when you're dealing with somebody with years of experience.
Great, sir. You discuss a lot of things, and you describe every tiny things about the resiliency. It's helped me in my life also, my viewers also, and you did a lot of great things. And
Thank you.
thank you so much. I am pleased. I am happy to have you on my show. But one last request to you that, sir, kindly give a final message to our viewers. Then we will wind up.
Final message. Resiliency is a beliefs and values system. Resiliency comes in part about from the inside out, but it's also from the outside in. So we have to be cautious of who we allow to influence our thinking and our feeling. Because with our thinking and feelings, that creates our behavior, and that builds our resiliency or diminishes our resiliency. So I would ask you to consider, who do you allow in your life, and do they uplift you, help you go in the right direction, or do they get in the way? It's good to have people who want you safe. But I had a couple of relatives, if I'd have listened to them, I'd still be living in my parents' basement because it's dangerous out there. You've got this disease, the chronic illness, and oh. But if you change states and provinces, what about your doctors? Well, there's real smart doctors in that state and province too. So be very careful about people who limit you. And on the other extreme, you got to be careful about people who want you to take risks that could mean if it failed, you'd be homeless. There's that middle 80% is where I want you to stay. And so resiliency, beliefs and values create behavior. Behavior creates resiliency. And inside we've discussed, but also what's around you. I'm blessed to live near a public library, and I don't know everybody by name, but the staff there is part of my community. Because if I come in looking for something serious, they go the distance. Because they know that I know that Google's not the answer to everything by any stretch. And so they're part of my research team. I don't do that but 6-8 times a year, but it's good to have. My local grocery store has a dietary expert. It's a free service. So I have gone there with my medical issues, said I have an appointment with you in 3 days. Here's my issues. That's my choice not to be private about it with her, but as a professional, she doesn't share that with anybody. Notice I didn't send it by email. I gave her a printed sheet, which she throws away later, disposes of. And she walks me through the store saying dietary choices, because I want my intake to be best class for best health. Notwithstanding, I bake cookies every 15 years for a couple of days. Because sometimes you have to emotionally take care of yourself in a way that's not quite as perfect for your body, but it's a little bit, not a constant. So that's my thoughts, inside and outside. Who's on your team? How do you build? How do they build you? And how do you move forward with that?
Great, sir. It's wonderful to talk you. It's my honor, my privilege. You are with me and sharing screen with me on my show. I feel blessed. I learned a lot of things from you. Highlight of today's show is that I may, I have, I can, I do.
Yes.
This is the highlight. This is the tagline of our today's show. Thank you very much once again for giving me time on very short notice. So once again, thank you, and
thank you.
We'll arrange a session with resiliency topic with you and another honorable guest. And
I'd look forward to it. I have a program for calmness that we could discuss, perhaps.
Sir, it will help me and my viewers to understand the resiliency very easy way. And you have a lot of experience. So I request for 40 minutes another session to you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bundle of time.
Great evening.
Okay, sir. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Okay, sir. Good night. Thank you.
Good night to you.
Good to you.